Hello, I'm Joshua Lisec, the New York Times bestselling author and ghostwriter of more than 90 nonfiction book titles. This is Daily Persuasion, where in a few minutes every day I teach you how to better influence the people who matter to you the most. Okay, so in today's episode, we are going to talk about effective ways to respond to liberal manipulation. Now, what is liberal manipulation? Have you ever noticed that those who are identifying as left of center, this includes everyone from the classical liberals who pretend to be just right of center, but when you really get down to it, they're socially liberal but fiscally conservative. That's the classical liberal position, all the way to the far left, to the Luigi Mangione type. The people who believe in the Marxist strategy, which is it's not okay to be a Menshevik. It's not okay to be just a socialist. You have to be a Bolshevik. You have to take the revolutionary spirit by both paws and drag it into the future. That is a situation, and that is the left. Now, notice how they generally don't believe in persuasion. They believe not in power, but in force. This is the David Hawkins approach. So they generally believe in demands, in compliance, in emotional gaslighting, and in other such strategies that are meant to make you feel bad so you will do what they say. They generally don't believe in logic. They don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in freedom of association. They certainly don't believe in freedom of the press or freedom of the Second Amendment exercise of those rights. Interestingly enough, if you watch the exchange between RFK Jr. and Senator Bernie Sanders, you realize that they don't even believe in freedom of labor. You notice how RFK, when talking to Senator Sanders, he said that something like freedom of speech is very different from healthcare is a human right. He pointed out that the government cannot tell you that you cannot say XYZ, but that's very different from someone who smokes a pack a day for 20 years and develops lung conditions. That person does not have a right to healthcare in the same way that that same person would have a right to free speech, let's say. And that was just too much for Senator Sanders, who, as RFK pointed out the very next day, is the top recipient of big pharma dollars. Isn't that a surprise? Or isn't it? And of course, he absolutely lost his mind at RFK. And in both of those situations, used what the character on X, formerly Twitter, the X platform, called @Insurrection Barbie. @Insurrection Barbie is the character's name. She pointed out that this is leftist emotional terrorism. And I love that phrase, leftist emotional terrorism. And the way to respond to it is to not play nice. There was a comment here on this channel that talked about how I really don't want to crush or destroy or do anything that's mean to half of the country. Can't we just get over that? No, we cannot just get over that. The only way to keep the Soviet Union from launching nukes at us is to have more nukes than they and be more ready to fire them at them than they are at us. It's called atomic diplomacy, mutually assured destruction. You remember that there were more than 1,500 political prisoners in the United States for 4 years. Political prisoners. You see this book behind me, Unhumans, that I co-author with Jack Posobiec? It was the best-selling book of the most consequential summer in American history, 2024. And by the way, we explained and predicted everything that we witnessed in the craziest presidential campaign, because what we witnessed was the battle between freedom and communism. It was between nationalism and cultural Marxism. I, of course, am famously a middle-class nationalist. I believe that a nation, in this case the United States, must prioritize the expansion and protection of middle-class families. How do we make it so that more of our citizens, keyword citizens, not illegal alien criminals, but citizens, how can we make it so that more of them can have more children, can have more opportunities, can have more ways to earn an income, more ways to take care of their families on just that one income, more ways to expand, more ways to grow, more ways to prosper. That is middle-class nationalism. And by the way, people will call me xenophobic and racist and bigoted and blah, 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 blah. But think about that for a second. The purpose of a government is to serve the governed, is it not? It's not to seize their stuff and to give it to people who are not the governed. That doesn't necessarily make any sense. And for the first time, we have an administration in the United States, or perhaps the second time, you might say, in a long time, probably not since President Theodore Roosevelt, have we had a president who believed that they are president of the United States, not president of the world. You remember President Barack Obama's famous apology tour to the Arab world and to the Middle East upon inauguration in 2009, in which the United States policy was to grovel before its foes and its frenemies, saying, we're so sorry we haven't been taking better care of you and serving you and giving you more of our money and more of our resources, more opportunities, letting you take more advantage of us. This is the left-wing way, and we must end it forever, and there must not ever be any going back. Some things are a zero-sum game, and some things are not. It is appropriate to protect good, common, normal people from lawfare, let's say, by the threat of lawfare being so strong because it works, because it hurts, that the left is never going to do it again. Leftist emotional terrorism, trying to manipulate you and gaslight you and guilt you, like I mentioned just yesterday with Caitlin Collins said, don't you think it's not helping the families to bring up DEI and the situation associated with the airplane flight? Without evidence? This is my impression of a CNN affluent white female liberal. You don't reply to that question. You say, I don't think that's a very smart question. You call it out. That's emotional terrorism. Wait, what? It's just shutting it down. One of my favorite approaches is what Mike Cernovich said the other day, which is in response to these people, you say, I'm not playing a stupid little game. Now, you don't necessarily say that one-on-one. The people that you're intending to persuade, like I said yesterday, are going to be people who are listening in on the conversation. Not necessarily the person who's attacking you, targeting you, or asking a bad faith question. It's the people who are the surrounding audience. That's who your audience really is that you're intending to persuade. Another reply that I quite like, as I've shared before, is the Tom Homan formula, which is not no but hell no, in response to the leftist emotional terrorism. So not no but hell no, plus here's what I'm going to do, plus here's what I'm not going to do while doing that. That's the three-part Tom Homan formula for dealing with emotional terrorism from leftists. And remember, a leftist is anyone from the actual revolutionary, like Luigi Mangione, or the person who tried to bring the Molotov cocktail to the Capitol and take out a bunch of the Trump administration, which, by the way, left-wing press did not really report on because it turns out the person was trans. This is what they do every single time. A leftist is anyone from the classical liberal, like a James Lindsay type, kind of like a woke light, diet woke sort of a character, which is like fiscal conservative but socially liberal. Yeah, that's a leftist. All the way over to the actual communists, revolutionaries, and neo-Bolsheviks, the bio-Leninists, we call them. That's left-wing manipulation. That's who engages in emotional terrorism. And generally, it is difficult to persuade these people. We've talked about this on this show many times before. There's different approaches. And one of them is camouflage, which we've also talked about recently. This episode is going on a bit longer than others, but I want you to understand how to deal with emotional terrorism. Do not engage. Just do not engage. Now, the Tom Homan formula, you might recall, was used by him, Tom Homan, when the border czar under Donald J. Trump, in which he said, responding to these reports of migrants, workers, illegal alien criminals, in the process of being deported, how it's inhumane. Oh, no. He said, that's a load of crap. So that's the not no, but hell no. So that's a load of crap. We're going to enforce the law. We're not going to apologize. That's a load of crap. We're going to enforce the law. We're not going to apologize for it. That's the not no, but hell no. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm not going to do while doing that. Now, notice that's forward progress. That's here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. Forward progress, momentum, movement. Imagine saying something like, we are going to get every last illegal alien off the streets, every last criminal. We're not going to go into the schools yet. You can slip in that little word, that beautiful little word, yet. Sneaky, beautiful, little panic-inducing word amongst the emotional terrorists. And that's when you can focus on what you're going to be doing. We're going to be shutting down every single DEI program in the United States. We will not permit racism against anyone in this country ever again. It's okay to be white. Saying something like that, that is such a forward movement, forward progress-based communication that they don't know what to do. They don't do it themselves. Because emotional terrorism, the objective is to gaslight you, to manipulate you, to guilt you, to shame you, to undermine you. And if you respond like J.D. Vance, the vice president, who also endorsed Unhumans, by the way, fantastic book, he just said, I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me. What are they going to do? There's no guilting, there's no shaming, there's no none of that. Remember when she tried to one-up him and she gave that snarly little face and said that this country is founded by immigrants? And he responded, this country is founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because some immigrants were involved in the founding of this country 240 years ago doesn't mean that today we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. Oh, snap. It's done. It's over. That's called a reframe. And it's also forward progress. We are not going to have the dumbest in the world. That's a not no, but hell no type of situation. So these sorts of replies, I think you will find helpful when you are attempting to persuade an audience and you happen to be surrounded by a leftist in person or online. And remember, a leftist is everyone from Luigi Mangione to James Lindsay. That's the spectrum that we have to deal with of emotional terrorists. What we need is a little bit of atomic diplomacy. That is what will be what brings us peace.